How's it going, Amazon class? It's your professor. So here today I'm talking to you guys about administrating a database. This is going to be your last presentation, and then we'll just cover labs afterwards. All right. So objectives. Here are your skills and concepts. You guys will be learning about securing database. The objective domain description will be understanding database security and concepts, backing up and restoring database, understanding database backups and restores. All right. So database security. Security, like every other aspect of the database project, must be carefully designed, implemented, and tested. Because security may affect the execution of some procedures, it must be taken into account when the project code is being developed. A permission is used to grant an entity, such as a user access, to an object, such as another user or a database. In SQL Server, the security model is based on what is referred to as a securables. So logins and accounts. A login or a logon is a process by which an individual access to a computer system is controlled by ID or of that user using credentials provided by that user. The most common login method is using a username and password. A user account is a logical representation of a person within an electronic system. So service level security. The three different methods of which a user can be initially identified include Windows user login, membership in the Windows user group, SQL Server-specific login if the server uses mixed mode security. It is important to remember that at the SQL Server level where the database resides, users are known by their login name. This can be a SQL Server login, window domain, or a username login choice. So let's talk about database level security. Even though a user may belong to a fixed database or a role and have a certain administrative level permission, a user still cannot access the data without first being granted permission to the database object itself. Examples are like tables, stored procedures, views, and functions. All users are automatically members of the public standard database role. So objects permissions. Each object permission is assigned through either granting, revoking, or denying user login permissions. So grant permission means the user can access the objects. Deny permissions overrides a grant permission. Revoke permissions remove the permission assigned regardless of whether it's denied or grant. So SQL Server Service Account. There are three different types of accounts which are available for the SQL Server Service Account. So remember, you're going to have your local user account, your local system account, and your domain user account. Let's talk about authentication. It's the act of establishing or confirming a user or system identity, very important in the DoD, Department of Defense. Windows authentication mode is superior to mixed mode because users don't need to learn yet another password and because it leverages the security design of the network. So SQL accounts. SQL servers also support a mixed mode, which allows you to connect to the server using Windows authentication or SQL Server authentication. So a SQL Server login account and related passwords are defined on the SQL Server and are not related to Active Directory or Windows accounts. So associated with SQL authentication is the SA account, the built-in SQL admin account associated with the SQL authentication. All right, so just go ahead and mess with that software that we're doing. SQL Server includes fixed, predefined server roles such as bulk admin, DB creator, disk admin, process admin, security admin, server admin, setup admin, and sys admin. So guest login account. Any user who wishes to access a database but has not been declared a user within the database will automatically be granted the user privilege of the guest user as long as the guest user has been created. So this is for people with limited access. The guest user account is not actually created when a database is created. It must be specifically added in through the SQL Server Management Studio interface and through a Transact-SQL statement. All right, so fixed data roles. SQL Server includes a fixed standard or fixed database roles. Here we're going to talk about your database admin, access admin, backup operator, data reader, data writer, DDL admin, deny data reader, deny data writer, owner, security admin. So objects permissions. So are the permissions that allow a user to act on the database objects such as tables, stored procedures, and views. So here you're going to have your select, insert, update, delete, DRA, and execute, what we've been going over in SQL. And ownership chains. So in SQL Server database, Users often access data by going through one of the several objects. Ownership chain applies to views, stored procedures, and user-defined functions. If the ownership chain is broken, meaning there is a different owner between the object and the next lower object, SQL Server checks the user's permission for every object access. Alright, let's talk about backup. Very important. The purpose of database backup is so that you have something to restore if the data is lost during a business daily routine. A user may accidentally delete a table, or a database admin may need to restore multiple tables on different servers in order to combine them in one database. So the need for a database backup is to restore a plan for a business are minimally and far-reaching. So types of backups: full backup, you have your full backup, takes all the data in a specific database or set of file groups or files, and also enough to allow a log for recovering that data. So differential backup: a differential backup contains only the data that has changed since the differential base. So you have your incremental backup. An incremental backup is based on the last backup of the data. An incremental backup contains only the data that has changed since the last full of the incremental backup. So you have your partial backups. Partial and differential partial backups are designed to provide more flexibility for backing up database that contains some read-only file groups under the simple recovery model. You have your file backups. The files in the database can be backed up and restored individually. Using file backups can increase the speed of recovery by letting you restore only damaged files without requiring you to restore the rest of the database. You have your backup devices. So here, SQL Server backups are created on a backup device such as a disk, file, or tape media. You could do hard drive, thumb drives. You can append new backups to any existing backups on a device or overwrite any existing backups. Alright, you have your database restore. Restore scenarios include the following: complete database restore, file restore, page restore, piecemeal restore, recovery only, transaction log restore, create a mirror database, create and maintain a standby server. Alright, let's go ahead and recap what we went over. So the end results working with the database security is to ensure that the rights and responsibilities given to the users through creating the users in the roles is enforced through a security plan. A permission is used to grant an entity such as a user access to an object such as another user or a database. A login and a logout is a process by which the individual access to a computer system is controlled by ID of the user using credentials provided by the user. The most common login method is using a username and password. Okay. So a user account is a logical representation of a person within an electronic system. All right, so anybody that's logged in that is active. If not, then they're inactive. Even though a user may belong to a fixed database role and have a certain admin level permission, a user still cannot access the data without first being granted permission to the database object itself, table stored procedures, views, and functions. Each object permission is assigned through either granting, revoking, or denying user login database. So this is all admin power right here. So authentication is the act of establishing or confirming a user or system ID. So Windows authentication mode is superior to mixed mode because users don't need to learn yet another PW such as password, and because it leverages the security design of the network. So associated with SQL authentication is the SA account, which is the built-in SQL admin account associated with the SQL authentication. SQL Server includes fixed predefined server roles. Primarily, these roles grant permissions to perform certain server-related admin tasks. So here you have your sysadmin. Can perform any activity in a SQL Server installation regardless of any other permission setting. The system admin role even overrides denied permissions of an object. So the public role is a fixed role but can have objects permission like a standard role. Every user is automatically a member of the public role and it cannot be removed. So the public role serves as a baseline or minimum permission level. Users must explicitly grant access to any user database. The DB owner a special role that has all the permission in the database. An application role is a database specific role intended to allow all application to gain access regardless of the user. So the purpose of a database backup is so that you can have something to restore if the data is lost during a business daily routine or anything that has a faulty problem. A user may accidentally delete a table, or a database admin may need to restore multiple tables on a different servers in order to combine them in one database. Full backups contain all the data in a specific database or set in file groups or files, and also enough log data to allow for recovering that data. Differential backups only backups data since the last full backup. Incremental backups only backups data since the last full or incremental backup. All right, so we went over what it is for the whole slides, and this is going to be your admin of a database. So this is going to be your last presentation, and from there keep working on your labs and turn them in on time. Make sure you guys come to class on time, and that's it. All right, so have a good week, have a good day. This is your professor. Thank you.